Okay. Well, welcome to Between Two Teachers today, Groundhog Day. And it's Friday, February 2nd. And this is our episode 219.
Yep.
Okay. So we are bringing you the news, good and bad and worse, from all across the nation and California, particularly, and local, and lots of call to action, things that we need everybody to on Groundhog Day. Please take your head out of the ground, poke your head up, look around, and we all need to see what's happening because there's a lot of things happening. So we're going to get started, and my name is Consuelo Lara.
And my name is Madeline Cronenberg. And as always, I'm going to begin with our labor and body recognition. And thank you to West Contra Costa Unified School District for adopting this particular one. I acknowledge that the burden of environmental exploitation and systemic injustice falls upon the labor of Black and Brown bodies in the building of this country and its institutions. I remember that Black and Brown people were born and died working this land against their will for generations. I also acknowledge the continued contribution of the labor of survivors over the centuries to today of all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples in the building of what we refer to as the United States. The author of that is Dr. Rochelle Rogers Ard, who is a leader in anti-racism education. And I also am going to give our land acknowledgement. We pause to acknowledge that we have gathered on the ancestral territory of Huichin, part of the unceded land of the Chochenyo and Karken speaking Muwekma Ohlone people. We remember to their continued contribution to this region and give thanks to them for allowing us to live, work, learn, and pray on their traditional homeland, and offer our respect to their elders and all Ohlone people, past and present. And we encourage you to follow the website Justice for Muwekma and support their efforts to becoming a federally recognized tribe so that they will be able to gain the benefits of being so recognized. And also to please follow the curriculums and training that are offered on the history of the Ohlone people in the East Bay. And you can find that on the East Bay Regional Park website, as well as on the Contra Costa County Office of Education website.
Yes, there's a land acknowledgement link you can get on from the first web page there under About CCCOE. There's also resources, lots of resources there about bullying. We're going to talk more about that as well. But yeah, there's lots of information on land acknowledgement.
Right. And we mention this every episode now because both the labor acknowledgement and the land acknowledgement are really an important way to ground any conversations that you're going to have about our larger, about civil discourse and about public policy. And that's really what we're trying to do here on Between Two Teachers. And we also always forget to say this, but please like and share and subscribe to our channel. It's always helpful to have new people come in and join us. So the national news, which is where we're going to start. This is just something that came to my attention and I think is important. This is in New York City. In New York City, there is a movement now by the students to gain more influence over the school district. And one of the things that happens in many districts now, people are elevating students and putting them on school boards, like we now have on the county, and in West Contra Costa, we have 2 student board members. But there are many different ways that student participation can look. And in New York City, they really are looking for much more input, direct input into how their schools are run. And they have basically, they've been promised that, and it hasn't necessarily happened. So here's a quote from these students. Many of us join advocacy groups and protest to make demands to the mayor and the chancellor. These are the people who run the school system in New York City, who have shown that youth opinion has no value to them.
Ah,
All right, so in New York City, they have a Department of Education Office of Student Voice, which in itself is a great idea, right? To have an Office of Student Voice. This office is run by one adult over 1 million students.
okay.
It gives you an idea of how important that is to them, right? One adult, and it was only created because of student protests. However, there is no investment in students having any self-determination over their own schools and future.
Mm.
And that's very clear, right? So what they have in New York, at this year's Education Advocacy Day in Albany, they have a 10th grader who shared that her teachers were getting laid off because of budget cuts, and her school relies on her PTA to buy paper, and on and on. And so they are creating a movement among their students, trying to get the people of New York State and certainly New York City to pay attention. So that is the first thing. Let's see what I do with this that I wanted to talk about. And I just think it is a critical thing for all of us to pay attention to what they're doing, and understanding the importance of listening to your students. So when you have even student board members, what they say needs to be elevated, right? They are the tip of the iceberg, and they're the only opportunity to hear what's happening from their perspective. And often that doesn't happen. They get lost in the mix.
Yeah, they need more of a platform and more opportunity to speak on the platforms that do exist, for sure. And I mean, come on, this is what, Gen Z or whatever. I mean, I've been reading about these generations. People are going to start doing things differently as they, move into adulthood and get. So we need to listen. We need to listen. That's so important because things are also happening we don't know about, or they've got a lot of best practices going on among the kids. The kids themselves will get together. I mean,
Right.
I'm always amazed by our student leaders, our student board members. They're just amazing to me,
It totally makes a difference. The student board members, I remember with the Youth Commission, once we had an event where the members of the Youth Commission had an opportunity to go to we had, the 5 high schools or 6 high schools in the district. And most of them had never been to a high school other than theirs. Right? The only ones who might have been are ones that are on sports teams. But unless you were playing in sports, you very likely never went to the other high school.
Yeah.
And that was an unbelievably eye-opening experience for them. Unbelievably eye-opening experience, because everybody got to see everybody else's school.
That's something. Yeah.
It really was. And there's no reason that you can't find that kind, whoever you are, whatever school district you're in, that's the kind of thing that we can find out there. It's out, that was an idea that came from the students.
Yeah. We do need more youth commissions. I think San Pablo City, I believe they have a youth commission. Richmond High or West Contra Costa does, or did. This was before the pandemic.
I don't know now what the status is.
You're right. I don't know either, because I remember going to one meeting and there were people from every school, and it was very and then who knows what's happened to that? But we need to bring them back if they used to have them, and they need to be heard and active and,
Well, and there's one in Brentwood. I mean, in the county, I mean, there could be a county youth commission, which
yeah,
could be very interesting.
to propose that, but we know how
Well,
things happen at the county. But yeah, we need to have that. We absolutely need to have one that could bring all 18 school districts,
all right.
a representative together at the county. I mean, that would be so powerful. I think it would be wonderful, And I think I remember talking to John Joya's office and asked them if they had a youth commission, and they said, "Oh, we used to." And I don't know if that motivated one, but yeah, they're pretty active in other counties. That seems to be um, something that they do have at the counties. And one county even had a board. The students met as a board, and it was conducted exactly the way our meetings are, with the agendas and with the. I mean, everything was. It was just. I think it was Napa, someplace in Northern California, and I we should have something like that as well. So we need to motivate our young people, give them those platforms, and that's it's really
I
necessary.
think it would make such a difference because the next things we're going to talk about are all of the repercussions from violence, and really part of that is people feeling unheard from the get-go, right? That
Oh yeah.
one of the big reasons people are acting out the way they are, and instead of, I mean, there's all of these issues that people can have different opinions on, but really, if they were used to having a format to be able to share their ideas, at least you'd have some training in how to do it, rather than just saying, well, I'll have to have a riot, which is very much what's happening, right? The problem is throughout California and the United States, we've got a community of people who have decided that violence works for them, and it's growing. It is absolutely growing. And I can say here, I'll just pull up this one screenshot because I think it's so telling. It is so telling. And this one is the screenshot for Temecula. There it is. The fact that you can have a podcast dedicated to the problems on the school board, right? And this isn't just the fact. I mean, honestly, school boards have changed. People have been more conservative and more progressive, and the numbers on boards have changed for years and years and years. So the real fact that has happened is not different. The part that's different now is that people are afraid. And on the Temecula Valley School Board, they had a change in the political philosophy of the majority when there was an election, and the conservative group now had the majority. And in the process of their changes, there was a tremendous amount of vitriol and now violence, and in the sense that there are people being threatened, right? And we hear this now across America, where we have elected officials being threatened, physically threatened with their families being threatened with violence, individuals being threatened with violence to their violence is happening to their property, a lot of violence. And obviously that's happening in Temecula. Okay, I'm getting a phone call from name unavailable, but I'm not going to take it. So this is just an example. What's happened in Temecula is one example, but what's happening there. So what they're doing is they were having a recall within the last month. They have had 2 of their board members resign. The same thing for different political reasons, but overall the same idea, because of the harassment, right? They're resigning. People don't resign for something they worked really hard to achieve unless something's happened and they're really afraid. They've been harassed and they're afraid. They're afraid something's going to happen to them and to their children, to their families. And one of them is, in their case, somebody is moving away. But the resignation speaks loudly. And another 2 members of the Berkeley City Council have resigned in the last month. One of them 2 nights ago. Right. And it was the same thing, because the Berkeley City Council has been taken over for different political reasons, right? Reasons that are more, one of them is an international issue, and the other one is specifically related to Berkeley. But those reasons grew into violent attacks and violent issues in Berkeley. This is the kind of thing that's happening. So in Temecula, one of the groups, One Temecula Valley PAC, is has a recall effort against the board president, and they now have enough signatures so that they're going to be able to have a recall election. So that's happening there. They also have to have an election to fill the seats, the vacant seats. In addition, they're going to have to do the same thing. They're going to have 2 elections in Berkeley. So that's like $200,000 a piece. Plus, you don't have anybody sitting in the seat.
What a mess. This is really something.
It really is.
And you can't get regular business and
Mm-mm.
address some of these issues that we talk about, safety, gun violence, and all of this, the needs of students. You can't even bring those things up. So
no, you don't even get to that. I mean, and what they're saying in Berkeley in particular is they have had to move their meetings, which get so contentious and raucous that they've had to move their meetings into a conference room next door, and basically take what they had no problem having meetings till late into the night and having long discussions at the council table over issues. There's no question that is a historic way that things are done in Berkeley, except when they're feeling physically threatened.
yeah.
And when they're feeling scared and physically threatened and they have to get the meeting done, they'll do things like, well, I guess we're not going to do that. We'll move it into another room. We'll put it on Zoom, and we'll put a lot of it on the consent calendar and just move.
Yeah. No discussion and no discourse on it.
No. So it doesn't, in no way does it make it, does it improve governance, right? Governance is not improved by any of this, right? Our society. So we have to figure out how we can, bring us more back to something closer to civility, something different, something. And there are some ways to do some of it now. At least there are efforts around protecting our kids. And I do want to show that. So the other thing that happened this week is there were a lot of conversations around safety, beginning with cyber safety. And that's another really important thing. And they had a hearing in DC. Let's see if I've got it on here. Yeah. Okay, I did that one. Oh, this one is they had 2 hearings. So the first one is California. In California, we now have 2 bills that actually for us in the East Bay were co-authored by our representatives, Ms. Skinner and Ms. Wicks. And one of them is to protect youth from social media addiction. And that has to do with, I think, the algorithms that the social media companies use. There are strategies that they employ that can be changed to reduce addiction. And California Children's Data Privacy Act by Assemblymember Buffy Wicks. And that's AB 1949. These are both really important bills for us to support, for everybody to support, because they are the beginning of protecting our kids.
Yep, absolutely. There's a call to action there.
So we're going to put these on our list, right? We're going to make a list now, and I'll put it up on our Facebook page so people can see it. And they are extremely important. So in any group that you're in that allows you to have a conversation around supporting legislation for California legislation, these are two that really deserve your attention.
Yeah, that'd be very important for our retired teacher group, CTA NEA, which I'm sure they're very involved as well. But yeah, we need to let everybody know, support these. Okay, good.
And the other one is this, the SHIELD Act. So this happened in the hearing Wednesday. And on Wednesday, the CEOs of a number of tech companies were before the Senate Judiciary Committee. And the bills that they talked about are these bills. So in addition to SB 9, the two California bills, 976 and 1949, these are the other ones that absolutely deserve all of the help we can possibly give them to get them through. They're being supported by a bipartisan group of people, but that doesn't mean that the tech companies won't be able to undermine their success if we're not all together on it. So there's the SHIELD Act, which stops harmful image exploitation. This is for privacy of children. It's sort of it follows the AB 1949 that Ms. Wicks has. There's Section 230 of the Communications Act, which needs to be changed because it gives a protection from liability to the tech companies and makes it impossible to sue them. And so the issue is they need to be, if they were liable, they would take their responsibility differently. Right now, all they're doing is paying their lawyers and their lobbyists to keep them protected from being sued. Right. And so that would stop if the Section 230 was amended. Then there is a board, an effort called Stop CSAM, and it's S1199. And that particular one will establish a new board called the Child Online Protection Board. And that would be a place where regulations could be vetted and brought forward to protect, because we never had it. This is a new thing, and it's been 25 years and nobody has established a regulatory authority to protect children or to protect anybody really from technology. But this one would be specifically for children, and this bill would create that. And then there's also the Kids Online Safety Act, and the Kids Online Safety Act would also bring a whole group of regulations forward to protect our children. And finally, they discussed several times during the hearing the Cooper Davis Act, which is one to address drug addiction.
These are all very, very good for us to follow. And I'm just remembering when we did our safety resolution, we passed a safety resolution, and then we were, I was trying to get a safety committee together. We did a lot of research around that, remember? And I remember there was a cyber summit on K-12 school safety and security, a summit for that. And so there's a lot of action. I heard some very bad horror stories, but it also directly linked to the school shootings and the gun violence that was happening in the schools because there were a lot of red flags that were ignored online as well. So all of these things having to do with social media are really important for us to to address and to make sure we're protecting the kids from these things. So good to hear that this is happening.
It really is important. It's a really important thing. And I think as we play it out, I mean, all of these things come together when you can focus on a particular incident. So the other issue that came up this week was an incident in Oxford, Michigan, and it was a school shooting, right? And so school shootings all have their own particular narrative and individual stories. This particular story, though, is one that we can learn a tremendous amount from, and we really do need to learn from it. And it's been given a lot of press this week because the mother of the shooter is on trial, and she's been testifying all week. But the issue, I think, for us, the bigger issue is what happened there. And ultimately, there was a report done on the issue, an independent investigation report released on the Oxford high school shooting. And the interesting thing that I think is important for people to know is, in that case, in this 500-page report, it tells the story of the young man, the shooter, who asked for help. He asked his parents for help, and he acted out in a way that asked for help. He drew provocative things. He wrote a story of his life that showed that he really was in a very deeply depressed state and needed support and help. It was recognized by people who've been trained, mainly the teachers who were with him all day, who essentially reported it up to other people, to their supervisors, the assistant principal, the counselors in the school, and who did talk to him. But they didn't take it the extra step, and his parents didn't either, right? What happened is people don't want to believe that there's a problem. And it's a whole lot of extra work to bring in counselors and have somebody go to a counselor. But he's the example. He is the poster child for this.
Yes, and well, those people also, they were not trained to identify those kind of things. That would, and where does all this stuff live? In a school district, and it's what we call social emotional well-being.
Exactly.
When you hear people attacking, I don't like that social emotional stuff. You are attacking our ability to protect our children.
Exactly.
To be about predicting and preventing. And that's what our wellness centers focus on, the wellness of our students in all kinds of areas, So this is good. This is good. We bear responsibility. We fail to provide a safe environment for students. I mean, that's it. All right, that's our responsibility.
That's what the report concluded 572 pages later. Even though they have a protection by the law that you can't sue them, there's this whole issue around being able to sue a government entity. So the families of the children are not in a position right now to be able to sue, and they're working their way around it. And there's a variety of lawsuits that are attempting to be pushed forward. But irrespective of their success on those particular legal points, this is the fact.
Yes.
And this is a fact with the school board as well, right? And what I'm hoping, and why I really wanted to bring this forward to everybody who's listening to this today, is that if you're on a school board or if you're part of a school community, you have to understand that you do bear responsibility if you fail to provide a safe environment. And a safe environment is one that reaches out and supports the kids that are acting out, at the very least. That's the story with this young man. And this young man was not, I don't believe, it wasn't an issue of cyberbullying. This was going on in his head. This was stuff that he was writing in his diary. That's what was happening with him, right? And everybody has, when we're talking about situations where we have children who act out, who have mental illness, that's its own story. Each story is individual to them, but we are set up to support each other, and we just need to activate those supports.
And everybody at a school site, whether it's the secretary, custodian, they could be trained on identifying those red flags we talked about, red flag training. So that, there's this phrase in education, unfortunately, called falling through the cracks. Oh, that kid just fell through the cracks. Well, how about we plug up those cracks, and we spend more time, more effort, more money, more resources on this area to identify the pain that students must be going through in all of this, whether it's mental illness or trauma or that is our responsibility, whether we like it or not. And we have to do that for our children and our community. So
that's exactly it. So, I mean, I just think that for today, I wanted to just leave this episode here. And for a shout out, I want to shout out to all of the people who are working to address this, right? Honestly, I will shout out to everybody on the U.S. Judiciary Committee. They are doing everything they can to protect kids, and they're working together, which is not something they usually are doing. But I was stunned and incredibly pleased to see how they were working together. And of course, Miss Wicks and Miss Skinner, who are our assembly members and our state senator, who are brought forward the bills in California. Yeah. So my shout out is to all of them. And it's always good. It's a good day when we can give praise to our political leaders. So we will criticize them when we need to, but I really do want to praise them when we have that opportunity like we have today.
Absolutely. Great. All right.
So that's it for episode 219 on this Groundhog Day. We'll see you again next week on Between Two Teachers.
Bye, everybody.